I grew up in New Hampshire, about 30 minutes outside of Manchester. In my early 20s, I still lived there, stuck in that strange in-between phase of life where you're technically an adult but feel like you're drifting without an anchor. I'd just gotten out of a 2-year relationship. The kind that doesn't explode but slowly dissolves until one day you wake up and realize you're alone again. No big dramatic ending, no screaming match, just silence where there used to be routine. That time of my life feels foggy now. I was working, paying bills, doing everything I was supposed to be doing, but inside I felt hollow, like I was walking around with something missing and couldn't quite name what it was. I wasn't depressed exactly, just, untethered. Around that same time, my grandfather passed away. He was a decorated veteran, well known in our town, the kind of man people nodded at when he walked by. His death hit my grandmother especially hard. They'd been married longer than I'd been alive, and suddenly she was alone in that big, quiet house. My grandmother was deeply religious. I mean the real kind of religious, not performative, not loud about it. Faith wasn't something she used to judge others. It was just part of her. After my grandfather died, she started attending church even more regularly than before, every Sunday, without fail. I started going with her. At first, it was just to support her. I didn't want her going alone, especially so soon after the funeral. But if I'm being honest, part of me hoped maybe some of that grounding she seemed to have would rub off on me. She talked about my grandfather, like he was just in the next room, like she knew he was okay. That kind of certainty fascinated me. Faith like that is rare. I think a lot of people spend their whole lives looking for it without realizing that's what they're missing. One Sunday after the service, everything changed. I noticed her almost immediately, which was unusual, because our church was small, everyone knew everyone. If someone new showed up, you noticed. She looked about my age, maybe early 20s, with dark curly hair and these deep hazel eyes that seemed almost gold when the light hit them right. I watched her from across the room while people talked and laughed and hugged. I kept thinking I must have seen her before, but I knew I hadn't. Eventually, after the service ended, I worked up the nerve to approach her. At first I told myself I was just being friendly, but that was a lie. I was drawn to her in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. We started talking, and the connection was immediate. I don't know how else to describe it. The conversation flowed effortlessly, like we'd already known each other. Her name was Kaylee. She had this quiet, mysterious charm, like she was always holding something back. I tried asking about her background, where she was from, her family. She deflected every time with jokes, telling me I'd have to take her out if I wanted answers. I liked that. The banter, it felt easy. Eventually she told me her family had moved to the area recently, and that she went to college nearby. That explained why I hadn't seen her before. By the time we finished talking, I had her number, and I left that church feeling lighter than I had in months. We texted constantly that week. Long conversations that stretched late into the night. We followed each other on social media. I remember thinking it was strange how few followers she had, but I didn't mind. There was something refreshing about it. As we got closer, she opened up about her family. Her stepfather was an alcoholic, cruel, and volatile. Her biological father was worse. She never gave details, just said they had to leave to get away from him. New schools, new town, new life. I didn't push. I was just grateful she trusted me enough to share anything at all. I didn't ask her out right away. I assumed I'd see her again at church. And I did. The following Sunday she was there. When the service ended, I asked her out. She smiled and said yes without hesitation. Our first date was simple. A movie, then dinner. Nothing fancy. I thought it went great. She listened, laughed at my stupid jokes, asked thoughtful questions. I didn't want the night to end, so I suggested we go for a drive. Just to talk. She agreed. We drove out of town along one of those roads that's technically a highway but feels like a country road, trees on both sides, no streetlights, just us and the sound of tires on pavement. Everything was perfect. Then, without warning, she started speaking. It wasn't English. The words came fast, slurred together, sounding almost like French or something close to it. At first I thought she was messing with me, but then I glanced over. Her eyes had rolled back completely. All I could see were the whites. I swerved so hard I nearly hit the barrier. My heart was hammering in my chest. She was still talking, her voice low and frantic, her head vibrating slightly like she was shivering violently. I pulled over, hands shaking, and called 911. I told them I thought she was having a seizure. I didn't know what else to say. I didn't want to touch her. I didn't know if I should. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. She snapped her head toward me. Her eyes were normal again. She stared at me with this wild, terrified expression I will never forget. Before I could say anything, she threw open the car door and sprinted into the woods. I didn't move. I couldn't. I sat there until the police and paramedics arrived. I told them everything. They searched the woods, but never found her. I never saw her again. She never returned to church. Her social media vanished. Her number was disconnected. No one at church even remembered her. I moved away not long after. New Hampshire doesn't feel like home anymore. But that wasn't the last time something like this happened to me. Years later, I was driving through Nevada in my parents' old 2012 Volvo. The thing was a miracle on wheels, barely functioning but refusing to die. The windshield wipers didn't work at all. Nevada's dry climate made that manageable, until it didn't. A massive thunderstorm hit out of nowhere, torrential rain, zero visibility. I pulled off the highway into the desert to wait it out. Hours passed, no cars, no relief. As night fell, I saw flashes in the distance, not lightning, flashlights, moving, jumping, getting closer. Instinct took over. I grabbed my phone, got out, and hid behind a rock formation. 3 figures approached my car, swinging their flashlights erratically. One of them fired a gunshot into the air. I stayed hidden until police arrived. The figures vanished the moment the cruiser's lights appeared. The officer wasn't surprised. That terrified me more than anything. And then there was the road trip with Carol, the tourist town that felt wrong, the identical cashiers, the gas station that filled with people in seconds, the minivan with the cracked windshield that passed us twice, an hour lost on the GPS. We never talked about it again. I don't know what any of it means. I don't know if these were coincidences, hallucinations, or something else entirely. All I know is the feeling, that gut-deep warning. Once you feel it, you never forget it. And once you notice it, it's hard to pretend the world is as safe and simple as you thought. I don't go looking for answers anymore. Some doors, once opened, don't close.